Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quests to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Welcome back to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I'm your host, Nichole Eaton, and I'm back with Christy Forsyth. She is my former, would we say former business partner? Regular business partner? What are we?
I don't know. Should we define the relationship right now?
I think so. Just so nobody has a stress response, but but Christy and I owned a business in New York, and I moved, and we're still creating cool stuff together, including this podcast. So this will be a regular occurrence on the Rock Your Comeback podcast. If you missed the last one on the Manifestation Reset, it's got over 55,000 downloads right now, and you should be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, check us out. We are going to be here every month, having a great time and sharing the stuff that we feel like sharing. But let us know what you guys want us to talk about.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about things we've learned as therapists for the last 20 plus years. Christy's got a million years, and I've got almost
doing this a million years. Yeah.
So we have a lot of experience working with people, our own personal experience, and just themes that we see with humanity. So this is going to be a really powerful podcast, but we kind of wanted to start talking and do a little segment to start on things that we're loving right now that we think you should either know about or consider, because this is something we do a lot, is we text back and forth about the things we're obsessing over. And we started to talk about that beforehand, and I was like, you know what? We should just throw this into the podcast. So you guys are going to get our personal conversation, and I think you're going to like it.
Yeah, we just love to share the tips and tricks, what we're loving, what's working for us, what's fun for us. And so we're going to be incorporating that as part of the podcast too.
So I want to start because I've been obsessing over this. I've been looking for my daughter has a hard time focusing, and I have been looking for things that will help her focus when it comes to school. She gets good grades, but she really struggles just to stay on task. Even doing her homework, it takes her a million hours longer than it probably should, just because it's hard for her to stay on task. So I've been looking for all this stuff, and I was watching this clip with Doc Amen. He is a leading brain scientist, and Khloe Kardashian, ironically enough. And she was talking about how the supplement saffron changed her life. And this is not an ad, by the way. I'm not selling this. This is just genuinely what I'm obsessed with right now. So I was like, ooh, saffron's really good for focus and mental acuity and just mental clarity. And I was like, I wonder if that would be good for Kylie, but I have trouble focusing sometimes. So I'm going to try it on myself, see how it feels in my body before I, give her a dose of that. So I bought it last week, and I noticed almost within an hour of taking the STAM supplement that I was in just the best mood. I just feel, you know what it is? It's an ease in finding better thoughts. And it's almost like it's coming more quickly, easily, naturally. I'm just in a really good mood and I guess a high frequency. And so I did so much research because I'm like, I thought it was just for focus. And then I'm looking and it's this is one of nature's antidepressants, saffron is. So you can do obviously regular saffron and soak it in tea or whatever, but they have supplements. And I know I got one that I researched off Amazon, but Doc Amen has one called the Happy Brain or something like that he suggests and he makes. So that probably is a better
Everyone wants to be happy. I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a cute name.
I know. And I gave my husband some, and he had a tremendously bad day on Friday. His social media got hacked. And so he's now a business without any kind of social media presence and lost 60, 70,000 followers and that kind of
Oh.
stuff. And he's like, I think I was handling that a little better he's like, I'm real chill about the whole situation. Like, obviously it's upsetting, but like, I feel like it's going to be fine. And I'm like, I think it's the saffron. Like, I don't know for sure, but anyway, I'm just putting it out there for anybody who is having a hard time. It looks like from my research that it's not something you have to increase dosage ever because your body doesn't necessarily adjust to it in the same way it does other things. And that it has the same, like, it just doesn't have any negative side effects that they have found.
Is it like an herb or a flower or I mean, I always think of it as a color. So I don't really know what it is.
I don't know what it is, but it's magic. So we're
Or a
gonna roll with
song. Isn't there a song called Saffron?
I don't I don't actually know. I'm assuming it's more like turmeric, ginger, like that would be my guess. And I think maybe like sticks of it or whatever and put in your tea. It's like really heavy in like Indian cuisine. But it's there's just a lot of, and people are like, oh, it's really expensive. I didn't think the supplement was any more expensive than anything else. For the amount that came in it, you just take one a day. I think it's fine. So yeah, so we're doing saffron.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to give it a try because I was saying before we hit the record button that I need the extra help with focus. So definitely gonna try the saffron. So my thing that I'm loving is actually a supplement too. I was thinking about that as you were talking about that. And this is something that I started using a few months ago because, well, frankly, I'm in perimenopause and was getting hit with the hot flashes at night. And even more than the hot flashes, with these feelings of dread or like the world was ending in the middle of the night. I would wake up and almost be in a panic attack. And it was really heavy and overwhelming. And it wasn't something I was ever dealing with before. And so I found these beef organ supplements.
Yum. So,
It has all the organs. And so they're like dehydrated organs put into a capsule.
I'm listening.
And it's supposed to support your organs, I guess. It's called Primal Queen. And also, I'm not being paid to share this, just something that I found to be really helpful. And I've noticed that it really is helping. I don't have the night sweats. I don't have the night anxiety. I'm starting to feel like the brain fog is going away a bit, although I still need a little work with maybe some saffron, but I don't know. It's just made this big difference for me. So I'm loving it right now. It doesn't taste bad or weird because doesn't that sound disgusting? Beef organ.
All I can think of is Cameron and I just started the docu-series that Stanley Tucci does in Italy. So he goes around to different things and talks about different food in Italy and the cities and why it's the food, like the history of it. And it's really, really fascinating. But one of the ones in Florence was called Lamperetto, and it's actually the fourth stomach of the cow. And it's apparently they started it because they were impoverished in Florence, and they had to basically they were trying to recreate what the royals were eating. So the royals were eating some kind of fancy eel, and so they were like, we don't have that, but we can make it out of leftovers of the cow and kind of create a similar taste to it. And so anyway, when you're talking about the supplement, all I can think about is like the fourth stomach of the cow and just mowing down on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably dehydrated and stuffed into that capsule. I don't know. But what's so cool is so they put like this minty heart-shaped thingy in there. And I guess that helps with it not tasting weird or smelling weird or something because it smells really minty when you open the container.
Is it like a chewable thing?
No, it's not chewable. You
Oh,
swallow.
thank God.
Thank
Okay.
God. Yeah. Ew. No, I don't want to chew organs.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I think like the thing is too is when we're talking supplements and we're talking these on a personal level, you really have to see what sits well in your body because I've tried 9 billion supplements And it really is so personalized to what your body needs and resonates with. And you're getting like pushed from every angle. So definitely like tune into yourself before you buy something like either of us are, talking about, but also with perimenopause. So I did a master class on perimenopause for the Comeback Club a couple months ago with Dr. Marta. Do you know that perimenopause can last 12 years?
I don't want to hear it.
Like I
Don't tell me about it.
it's like a year and people go right into menopause, and then sometimes it could start 12 years before. And I'm just like, that is mean, it's rude, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah, that's like forever. This will not be my experience. This will not.
No, no, no.
No, no,
Same,
no, no.
same.
The organs are doing their job, and hopefully we're out of perimenopause now. I don't know.
The other thing I'm loving outside of beef organs, I actually purchased, and I've seen this book over and over, and I guess it was the right timing for me, but I bought The Artist's Way. Have you heard of that?
I have.
Have you done it?
No.
Okay. So it's basically like getting unblocked with your creativity. So if you feel like you just were naturally creative as a kid and that's kind of shut down, or you feel like ideas used to flow to you a little bit more regularly and you don't have it anymore, or whatever excuses you're making around your creativity, it's like a guidebook. So you break it down into a week, and there's 2 tasks every week. You write every day these morning pages, and basically it's basically automatic writing. So you just write until you're done writing. I kind of set the intention to fill up 3 pages. Um, and then I'll be done. But like I just write whatever comes to mind, just kind of like clear, empty out. And then the second one is to go on a date by yourself, not with your spouse, not with your kids, not with your friends. Like nobody else is allowed to come. And it's called the inner child date. So you take your inner child to do something fun, or you sit and color or draw with sidewalk chalk, or you go to a museum, but it has to be by yourself. And it's kind of like nurturing and honoring that like little creative energy inside of you. And so it's like you do kind of each thing per week. There's new ideas that you read each week, and then there's journal prompts and stuff. It's been really fun to do and like to play with.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds really good. It sounds like it would help to connect you with your creativity. I just think it's so easy to move away from that. We get so busy with the day-to-day stuff. And so when you just take that time, and I think through the writing too, you're obviously connecting with your intuition.
Yeah.
So it's like what I talk about with people all the time is to take that time and that space to connect with yourself. So you're doing that through the writing, you're doing that through spending time in your own energy. So I totally get it.
Well, and like the thing about the morning pages that they were saying, and I find true, is like you can only complain about something so much before you feel compelled to like sick of your own stuff, right? Like you can only write down like here's the thoughts I'm having, and here's the things that are bothering me, and here's the whatever. Like you can only do that so much before you're just sick of your stuff and you're going to make an active plan to change it. Because the morning pages are really a brain dump so that you can clear out the clutter and the gutter for your intuition to come through, for your creativity to come through for the day. So it's really just whatever comes to mind for 10 minutes or for 3 pages or whatever you kind of set for your own standard. But I used to do this all the time, and I used to kind of call it my clearing out before I manifested, like I created space. And I kind of got away from it as a practice. So when I read that, I was like, oh, I've done this before. And I just forget how valuable it is to just feeling more receptive to ideas and whatever else. So I'm loving that book.
I'll have to get back to that. I stepped away from it. I was doing a little bit, maybe it's a little different, I don't know, but it was just like automatic writing stuff because I was listening to Myron Golden. Remember
Yeah.
when we were loving Myron Golden? And he was talking about the value of just like starting your day with it. So it was something I was doing for a while in my morning. I kind of like shake up my morning routine sometimes. So sometimes I'll be doing some stuff, and then I feel like I switch into a new cycle and I'm doing something else. And so, but I'll have to come back to that.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I think that's really important to point out though, even if we're like, let's say we're diving into this segment on what we've learned as a therapist. There are people who I meet with who have the journaling, they do the meditation, they do the the exercise. They have a morning routine 2 hours long and they don't feel better. And the reality is when it comes to like coping skills and actually like doing stuff that works is it's not like just doing it to check a box or check off the list of things to do. It's how it makes you feel while you're doing it. So when you're working on creating a morning routine, a lot of people have really extensive morning routines and they feel that the whole way through. And some people just use it to check off a list. And I want you to make sure that when you're creating a morning routine for yourself, or you're seeing somebody else who does the ice bath, so now you're doing the ice bath, like the reality is if you're not getting a benefit from it, it's not for you right now. It could be for you a month from now, it could be for you a year from now, but you have to always kind of be checking in when it comes to your routines and your personal coping skills, because you can get really lost in the influencer hole of the things you quote unquote should be doing. What do you want to do? What feels like it will be valuable to you today? Biggest advice I could give anybody.
Absolutely. I think it's so important to just like follow your flow. What am I needing right now? What am I needing today? What has been helpful for me lately? And using those things that you feel like you're really pouring into yourself rather than doing something that you feel like you have to do or somebody else thinks that you should do or something that you hate. Like I don't ever see myself doing an ice bath. I just don't. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong. Maybe a year from now I'll be doing that. Who knows? But I don't think so. I've tried even just to take a cold shower. Not for me.
I just talked with a girl who does like nervous system resets, and I was asking her about that. I was like, I cannot stand a cold shower. Like, and she said, for some people, the idea of actually getting in the cold tub spikes your cortisol. And so it's like if you already have spiked cortisol, it's going to extra spike your cortisol and it's not for you. So I think it's just listening to yourself when it comes to these tools and things that you're using so that you're not trying to force yourself into whatever other people are doing that works for them. They're an entirely different person for you. Same as we were talking about the supplements earlier. Some of them are going to work for you and some of them aren't. And you get to pick and choose what makes sense based on how it feels in your body.
Yeah, and I think feel it out too. I think when you tune in, if you were listening to us talk about that stuff, or you're listening to any of these things that we're talking about today, and there's this part of you that responds to that, that feels drawn to that, then I would follow that flow. But that's your intuition, and take what resonates with you, leave the rest for somebody else who's meant to connect with it. But it's not all going to connect for you. But your intuition is really amazing at showing us what we need and what we should be doing.
Yeah, 100%. What else have you learned as a therapist, either within yourself or working with clients? Like, what do you notice or see?
I think a really big one, I've learned this in my own personal experience, and I've learned this in working with other people, is that you cannot change other people.
Mm,
And I think that we get that logically, but emotionally, we don't understand that. And we get very wrapped up in what are other people doing? How can we get this person to be what we need them to be? How can we get this person to show up in the way that we need them to? And people get really wrapped up in that. And every single time that we do that, we're handing our power away. We
yeah.
are not allowing ourselves to address what we need to be addressing because I think like when you shift the focus on yourself, then you start to return the power back to yourself. You start to be in a position where it's like, okay, this I have control over, this I can work on, this can change the energy. Because the thing is, like, when you work on yourself, you can change the energy when you're interacting with somebody else.
Yeah.
But you can change. I always call it like the dance, right? Every interaction that we have, every relationship we have is like a dance. And so when you start to work on yourself, you can change the dance, and the other person that you're dancing with might dance differently in response to you. But if you stay stuck in focusing on trying to change them or to change the way that they're showing up, you're never going to get where you want to be. So If you are stuck in that place, I would try to shift that focus back to, what can I do? How can I be more in control of myself? What changes might I make in order to create a different experience with this person or just in my world in general? Because I find that when we change our energy, we change our entire experience, not just with one person, but with many of the people that we interact with, because we're putting out a different signal, we're putting out a different energy, and so we're going to attract get different kinds of people, we're going to attract different kinds of experiences simply by bringing that focus back to ourselves.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, and I would say this is something I've learned on a personal level, but now I really like to hammer it in with people of like, okay, so they are doing this. What part of you is accepting that if you don't like it? What part of you is staying if you don't like it? Like, you're not without choice. And I think returning people back to their power is returning people back to the choices that they actually have. Is that like, okay, so you don't like this and you don't want to be treated like this. So what are you going to do? And I think that that almost radical responsibility has been something I personally like a credit to changing my life, because I think I grew up with a bit of a victim mentality, that the world was happening to me and not for me, and that I was like the victim to it. And I'll be the first to tell you that. And so I see it very quickly and easily in other people when they're not taking their power back or saying, okay, so this isn't working. I don't like this. And here's what I'm going to do about it. So it really is about like creating a plan and creating accountability for yourself and asking yourself, do I want this for me? Is this the life I want to live? That will change most of your relationships.
Definitely. Start with those changes and you will see the ripple effect in your life. And by the way, sometimes when you make changes with yourself, that leads to endings with the connections that you have around you, because all of a sudden you're showing up differently. And sometimes that doesn't work with the dynamics that you had before. But that's okay, because when that happens, it allows you to call in better experiences, better people. So that's something that I always connect with, an idea that I always connect with too, is just this idea that when something is clearing out of our lives, it's making room for something better.
Yeah. Yes. And I think too that a lot of people don't understand, when you change your life, it can be very lonely. And it can feel like I made the wrong choice because I'm alone. And I think there's that little bit of a waiting period where you lock in who you are and who you want to be, where the next new people come in who are more on your level. I think that committing to yourself and what you want, and deepening that belief that you get to have that, is that next piece, right? And when you do, the right people will come. So I will say, if you are in that like hallway phase where you've closed one door but haven't opened another, like, you're okay, more people are coming, the right people are coming, but you get to lock that in. And I think this kind of also goes along the lines of, I think that we feel most stuck when we're in between two decisions and we're too afraid to make the choice. That's something I see a lot, is I feel like people ruminate on, well, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could quit this job, or I could start this business. And they don't go one direction or another. They just sit in the middle and then they're in their head about it. And I think that decision making, like, you can't fuck this up. Like, decision making is going to get you out of that stuck energy. Like, you're not stuck, you're just scared. And if you're scared, that's fine. We can face fear. We can't do a damn, like, stuck is victim. Stuck means I don't have a choice. I can't do anything at all. The power in finding your power is saying, okay, I'm willing to bet on myself, or I'm willing to agree to stay in the position I'm at, but at least I'm making that choice consciously. I think those are the two directions. And I think part of that too comes along with being willing to have the hard conversations. I know something that's like personally a thing that I have been working on for a long time is I don't like conflict. Fucking hate it. Like, I will have something on my mind for a decent amount of time before it actually comes out of my mouth. And so I would say like that when you have the hard conversations, if you're scared of what the other person's going to say, like at the end of the day, at least otherwise you're just in your head. and you're guessing and you're projecting of what this other person might do or say or how they might react, and you create this whole scenario that you won't know until you actually have the conversation. So have the hard conversation.
Absolutely. And the energy right now, by the way, really supports that. So anything that you've been holding back with, I think just take the leap of faith. Because it does affect you. I have gotten a lot better at this, but I noticed that there were some things that I needed to talk about. I was sharing this with Nichole before we hit the record button, and I wasn't sharing it and I wasn't talking about it and I wasn't having the conversation. And so I was having these really weird stress responses to it because I was holding it inside of myself. And now that I've said the things that I want to say, I feel so much lighter. And we'll see what direction that goes with that. But I feel a lot lighter. And I think that we need to be that's part of that leap of faith, is to be willing to put yourself out there. So take a breath or use a 5-second rule, Mel Robbins, right? The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And you just say what you need to say and see what happens. I love to approach life like it's a video game. And so I will like take that step back, almost like I'm stepping out of reality and I'm taking a look at it and I'm saying, okay, if I want to get to the next level in this game, what is it that I need to do or say in order to get me there? How do I get to the place where I have successfully completed this level, this lesson? What do I need to do? And so I'll take a step back and I'll look at, what are the cycles that have been showing up for me? What are the patterns that have been showing up? What is something that keeps showing up and repeating again and again and again? And how have I handled it in the past? And then usually when I recognize that, I realize, okay, like I've handled that pretty similarly every single time. And so in order to get to the next level, I've got to do something different. And so you give it a shot. And sometimes, by the way, you crash and burn. It doesn't work out. It's not the way, it wasn't the way to get to the next level, but at least you tried something different, because nothing changes if nothing changes. But most of the time, what I find is that when I just tune in with my intuition and I say, okay, what do I feel like I need to be doing in this situation that's different? I do that. And then I truly feel like I've leveled up in my life. I truly feel like I'm in a different place than I was. And I'm not seeing the same pattern repeating again and again and again. That can be really freeing.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing too, is like when you're seeing this pattern repeat in different areas of your life, you have to look at like, is there anything I'm doing, thinking, saying, feeling that's perpetuating this pattern? I had a girl who was like, she was talking about having daddy issues. She's like, but I have the best husband ever. And I'm like, yeah, but all your relationships are these power over situations where you feel really powerless, and it's causing so much chaos and anxiety within you that you're doing like nervous system resets, right? Like it's still showing up, just not as you thought it was going to. And so locking that like back into yourself and doing that inner work is going to change the outcome. And at the end of the day, if you can pull back in and look at your thoughts and your beliefs around things, that matters. And honestly, I feel like my daughter said this the other day. She was like, I feel like nobody is self-aware and they don't have, and I'm like, you know what, Cam? Like, there's a lot of people who aren't self-aware. So when we have issues coming up with them, they don't always know they're wrong. People are really convicted in their own beliefs. And so having the ability to like reflect on what you did wrong and what you want, I think is a power move in society, because I think a lot of people don't have that ability. And also that kind of goes along with like not taking what other people do or say personally. Like at the end of the day, that's about them. That's about their journey. That's about the stuff they've been to and the beliefs they've come to have about the way the world works, about the way people always do this. And I think if you are walking through the world with good intentions, and you're willing to talk it out, that's the most you can do, because other people are going to villainize you. Other people are going to not like you just because of the way you act or the way you look. I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, Christy, but when we worked at a not-for-profit therapy agency or counseling agency, I had a client and I was finishing up my internship. I got a job there, but like this was before we knew I had the job there. So I was finishing up my internship and I was transferring my clients, and I transferred this one little girl to you. And she was so upset because you reminded her of somebody that bullied her, or like just I don't know if it was the way you talked or whatever, but like she was so upset about it. And I'm like, Christy is better at this than I am. Like you should want to go to her, but something in your energy or just like the way you acted like reminded her of somebody that had hurt her, upset her. And so like sometimes people can have a thing against us and it has nothing to do with us. Actually, most times I would say.
Yeah, usually it has nothing to do with us. It's so funny. I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it was like a
Yeah.
teenage girl. Yeah. But
Uh-huh.
it's funny because, people can trigger us and we can trigger people and we can upset people and we just don't even have any clue of what happens. And so getting like confident in yourself and who you are in the world is going to help you separate that a little bit too, because if you were leaning into everybody for validation or for who you are, then you're getting lost in the mix, and then when they go, it feels like you're missing a huge part of you.
Definitely. I also think when we're talking about advice from things that we've experienced through therapy, one of the primary things that I do with people all the time, and it is so simple, but it's something that I have to do a lot with people, is to ask them what they need. Because I think that we get so caught up busy living life, caught up, and a lot of the people that I work with are helpers and so in empaths and all of that. They're so busy taking care of everybody else that they forget to ask themselves that question. And
Yeah.
so they'll get to a place where they get so overwhelmed, so full of emotion and overwhelm and anxiety that they just get to that place where it's just like built up and they can't ignore it anymore. And then they'll come to me and I'm asking them that question, what do you need? And it's like almost like this epiphany for them a lot of times to tune in with themselves and answer that question. And a lot of times, by the way, it's something really easy. It's not like these big, extravagant, expensive things that we need to be doing. It's like, I need a nap, or I need to drink more water, or I need to make sure that I'm leaving an hour in the morning for myself, or whatever that is. But to tune in and ask yourself that question is so powerful.
Well, and it can be so simple. I remember I had a business coach last year or the year before, and the first day I was working with him, we did this like long VIP day, and I was like, being like the main caretaker of my children is really challenging for me because it feels like I would work better in different environments than being just home all the time. But, I have kids and they have, different things. And he was like, okay, like let's break this down really. Like your kids are old enough to be home alone for an hour after school. Like they're not going to melt into oblivion. And he was like, what's the real holdup? I'm like, well, they don't have house keys. And when I said it, I was like, that's so stupid. Like, what do you mean? And so he's like, text your husband right now, tell him that you need 2 house keys made up before you get back from Austin. And it was by 1 p.m. that day that the kids had house keys, and then I could go. But it's so funny because it just felt like truly I couldn't, because I had all these responsibilities, but it was like one small thing that needed to happen in order for it to be fine. And it's just like sometimes it's silly until you actually like look at it. And I think that's true about most things in your life. Sometimes it feels like you're spinning and it feels like there's no good outcome until you actually look at it. And that's why I love what Christy and I do, is because we sit with people and they answer their own questions a lot of times, right? Is they have like this problem and they're like, oh, but wait a second, and sometimes just talking it out and getting it out of your body helps you look at it differently.
Definitely. So tuning in and asking yourself that question and then taking action on it, like you're
Mm.
saying. Maybe right then and there in that moment, what can I do in this moment to ensure that I'm taking action on it so that I am honoring myself? Because I find that so many people, almost all of us, have some work to do in regard to self love. And so as you start to take action, that looks like some form of self love, it actually helps to support you to move in the direction of loving yourself more because you start to feel like, oh, I am taking good care of myself. I do love myself. And then that belief starts to develop there like, yeah, maybe I do love myself. And it's one of those things that energetically snowballs and people start to feel truly more loving toward themselves and truly in a place where they include themselves on that list of the people that they're taking excellent care of.
Yeah, and it feels good to be a person who says you're going to do something and then do it. Like at the end of the day, if we looked at ourselves like our best friend and our best friend, every time they said they were going to do something, they didn't follow through, we would probably not be best friends with them anymore. And like at the end of the, at the end of the day, like confidence comes from the root word like to confide in, to trust in. And so if we're building confidence, it really comes down to being somebody who says they're going to do something and then does it. Every time you quote unquote fall off the wagon, you're proving to your subconscious, you're proving to yourself that you're not somebody who says, that they're going to do something and you don't do it. So that's really one way to establish confidence. That's a way to establish self-love. And the key with everything, I think, this is just my perspective, and I'm curious what yours is, Christy, making very small shifts. Like I really feel like it's easy to change your life if you are willing to be intentional about making small shifts. I think the small shifts can add up to massive transformations. So when you're making a promise to yourself, it doesn't have to be that you're going to work out for 2 hours twice a day. It can be that I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk when I wake up in the morning and a 10-minute walk before I go to bed. Making small, manageable, easy commitments and then following through is like, oh, you know what? I am somebody who follows through on the things I say. So you can take what we're saying and then break it down into something that feels more doable. Like, am I willing to believe that I'm somebody who follows through and does that? Well, what am I willing to believe in? Am I willing to believe that that I can do 10 minutes? Yeah, that's so easy, so simple. So I think buying into your own beliefs is a huge part of that. And also starting to tell yourself new stories about what type of person you are.
This isn't about adding to your plate. We all have our plates as full as we'd already like, I'm sure, right? And so we don't want to add to our plate. This is just about little steps in the direction. What can I do today? What do I feel like I'm capable of doing today? And those little steps in that direction eventually are going to build into something bigger. Or a lot of times when you start to do something too, you keep doing it. So if you make that commitment, I'm going to just walk for 10 minutes. And then you're like, this is fantastic. It's sunny out. I'm loving all the sounds. It just feels really good. And so I'm going to walk another 10 minutes and then I'm going to walk another 10 minutes. And that's how you create a momentum, not only that time, but then it's like, okay, so that was really fun for me to do yesterday. So today I think I'm going to do that too. And so you do that and that is slowly but surely nurturing yourself, nurturing your soul, and it's building into better habits.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like my final thing, um, I think that your emotions are like I wrote in my book, depression and anxiety are your check engine lights. Like those are the things that tell you that something in your life isn't working. And so I think coming from traditional therapy to intuitive therapy and the work we do now, including energy and intuition, in addition to mindset, it's become really, really clear to me that some anxiety and some depression is energetic. And B, that it's just feedback from our body about something that is going on in our life or in our mind that isn't right for us. And so instead of deciding that you are just an anxious person and you'll always be an anxious person, or you're just a severely depressed person and you'll always be a severely depressed person, you can look at the emotion as information and feedback on, okay, so what in my life, if this thing in my life was different, would I feel different? And a lot of times, I would say more often than not, the answer is absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong, there are always times where you can, get on, you're too deep in the hole and you need a little help, and that's like fine. But I just don't ever believe that that is who people are. Like, I think a lot of people get this diagnosis when they're going through really hard life events, and then they decide that that is something they deal with forever. And I just feel like, as a therapist, as somebody who's worked with people for 20 almost years, like, I just don't believe that's true.
I also think when you're talking about that stuff, when we start to label ourselves and we start to identify as that thing, we create an energy where we really keep ourselves stuck and small within that, right? When we start to say, I am, insert this diagnosis, and I won't even use a word at the end of I am that I don't like, because I know that then I begin to embody that energy. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we are following those I ams with qualities that we would prefer to have or that we love about ourselves, that kind of stuff, because we can get really, really stuck within that. And that's just a story that we get caught up in and that we're telling ourselves. But I think whenever we're telling ourselves a story, we have an opportunity to tell ourselves other stories as well. So, what's the story that I would prefer to believe about myself? Maybe I'm just someone who is having a hard time at the moment with a little bit of anxiety. And maybe that anxiety is teaching me something about myself, about something that I need to change, about something that I need to pay attention to. Or maybe that depression is showing me that something needs to be different in my life, or that I need to pay better attention to something in my life. And so when we start to shift that and break out of just this is what I am and move into allowing that to be just something that we're experiencing at the time and something that's teaching us, it I think gives us a lot more power over it.
Yeah, and your identity is driving everything you do. Like, who you believe you are at the end of the day, good, bad, or otherwise, is driving your perception, it's driving your actions, it's driving your mindset. And we will never venture too far outside of who we believe ourselves to be. So if you're going to do anything in your personal growth, it's being willing to believe that you are the person you're trying to become, that there's something inside of you that's already locked in and already there. And I think that my big tip I would give anybody is that it doesn't have to be a 0 to 60 thing. It can be incremental. You can move and change your limiting beliefs and your stories inside of you and your identity, not through deciding that you are suddenly somebody else, but that every day you're getting a little bit more consistent. Every single day you are becoming a little bit more confident. Every single day you're getting to be a little bit more magnetic or charming, or every single day you're following through on your fitness routine a little bit more. It's not about going from 0 to 60. It's about working with the limitations our brain already believes for good reason. We've come to believe things for a good reason, but then deciding, like, ooh, do I like that story and where does that lead me? But we can't do any of that if we don't create self-awareness, and we can't do any of that and catch those thoughts and have awareness of them if we don't take time to sit down and ask ourselves, what do I need? And who do I believe myself to be? And is that where I want to go ultimately?
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fun conversation. Do you have anything before we wrap up that you want to add?
The only other thing that maybe I would add to just things that I've learned from myself and just also through my work with clients is surrendering it sooner. Because I find that we get really caught up in trying to control it and wanting a particular outcome and getting very focused on that. And people get really upset when things aren't moving in that direction, or they're feeling stuck or blocked or whatever. And so I've just had to learn really the hard way many times, again and again and again, that the sooner that I surrender it, and you can surrender it to whatever that is, whatever your higher power is, but I hand that up to God and I just say, you know what, God, I'm going to just give this to you. And usually it's because I get to a place where I don't know what else to do with it. But I have learned over the years to do that sooner, to just say, you know what, I'm going to just release this. I'm going to detach from a specific outcome and I'm handing it to God. I'm going to trust for God to figure this out, to work this out for me in the way that is for my highest and best good, because everything is always working out for me. And when we can do that, I think that that sets you free in a way that nothing else has for me in my life. So surrender it sooner.
And I'm lazy. So that's also just if you are lazy, that's a really good hack of like, I don't know how to resolve this. I'm gonna let you resolve this. And like it might not be necessarily the same energy that it's approaching, but a lot of times I'm just like, oh yeah, there's divine intelligence and I'm a part of that. And if I don't know and I can't figure it out, then I could either stress on it and get worked up about it, or I can invite the universe in to show me a better way. And every freaking time it's like by the end of the day or by the end of the week, it's like, oh, well, I was all worked up about that for no reason because it's all resolved now.
It literally creates so much more ease in your life. So call it lazy, call it whatever, right? But it creates so much more ease. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have to carry this all by myself. I don't have to hold on to all of this stuff. And that's what I mean when I say it's so freeing.
Yeah. Well, I love this conversation, and you can catch Christy and I once a month. We don't have a name for this series, but we'll find one, and then you'll know to look for us. But make sure to check out the show notes for all the information to connect with Christy, all of her socials, and all of my stuff too. And we will catch you next time.
See you soon.